My hours of leisure I spent reading the best authors, ancient and modern, being always provided with a good number of books, and when I was ashore, in observing the manners and dispositions of the people.
Will you come and do some washing up? That kitchen's a bloody pigsty.
Yeah. I accepted an advantageous offer from Captain William Pickard, master of the Antelope, who was making a voyage to the South Sea. It would not be proper, for some reasons, to trouble the reader with the particulars of our adventures in those seas, but let it suffice to inform him that in our passage from thence to the East Indies, we were driven by a violent storm to the northwest of Van Diemen's Land. We therefore trusted ourselves to the mercy of the waves. What became of my companions in the boat, as well as those who escaped on the rock or were left in the vessel, I cannot tell, but conclude they were all lost. When I was almost gone and able to struggle no longer, I found myself within my depth, and by this time the storm was much abated. I was in so weak a condition that I did not observe them. I found myself much inclined to sleep. When I awoke, it was just daylight. I attempted to rise, but was not able to stir, for as I happened to lie on my back, I found my arms and legs were strongly fastened on each side to the ground. In a little time, I felt something alive moving on my left leg. I perceived it to be a human creature not 6 inches high, with a bow and arrow in his hands and a quiver at his back. I had the fortune to break the strings and wrench out the pegs that fastened my left arm to the ground. About 50 of the inhabitants came and cut the strings that fastened the left side of my head, which gave me the liberty of turning it to the right, and of observing the person that was to speak. It seems that upon the first moment I was discovered sleeping on the ground after my landing, the Emperor had determined in council that I should be tied in the manner I've related, and a machine prepared to carry me to the capital city. In less than 3 hours I was raised and slung into the engine, and there tied fast. All this I was told, for while the whole operation was performing, I lay in a profound sleep, by the force of that soporiferous medicine infused into my liquor. At the place where the carriage stopped there stood an ancient temple, esteemed to be the largest in the whole kingdom. In this edifice it was determined I should lodge. One morning, about a fortnight after I had obtained my liberty, Reldresal, Principal Secretary of Private Affairs, came to my house, attended only by one servant. For, said he, our histories of 6,000 moons make no mention of any other regions than the 2 great empires of Lilliput and Blefuscu, which 2 mighty powers have, as I was going to tell you, been engaged in a most obstinate war for 36 moons past. I communicated to His Majesty a project I had formed of seizing the enemy's whole fleet, which, as our scouts assured us, lay at anchor in the harbour ready to sail with the first fair wind. Having thus fixed 50 hooks to as many cables, I went to the north-east coast and walked into the sea. I waded with what haste I could, and arrived at the fleet in less than half an hour. The enemy was so frightened when they saw me that they leapt out of their ships and swam to shore. I then took my tackling and fastened a hook to the hole at the prow of each. They thought my design was only to let the ships run adrift or fall foul on each other, but when they perceived the whole fleet moving in order, they set up a scream of grief and despair. This great prince received me at my landing with all possible encomiums, and created me a nardac upon the spot, which is the highest title of honour among them. About 3 weeks after this exploit, there arrived a solemn embassy from Blefuscu, with humble offers of a peace, which was soon concluded upon conditions very advantageous to our emperor, wherewith I shall not trouble the reader. I was alarmed at midnight, with the cries of many hundred people at my door, by which being suddenly awaked I was in some terror. Several of the Emperor's court, making their way through the crowd, entreated me to come immediately to the palace, where Her Imperial Majesty's apartment was on fire by the carelessness of a maid of honor who fell asleep while she was reading a romance. The case seemed wholly desperate and deplorable, and this magnificent palace would have infallibly been burnt down to the ground if, by a presence of mind unusual to me, I had not suddenly thought of an expedient. I had the evening before drunk plentifully of a most delicious wine called Gulliver, which is very diuretic. By the luckiest chance in the world, I had not discharged myself of any part of it. The heat I had contracted by coming very near the flames, and by labouring to quench them, made the wine begin to operate my urine.
Hi, I brought you a cup of wee. Tea.
Thanks.
You're not going to believe what I've just seen.
No?
Oh, bugger.